Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get into the topic, let's announce the crew here. Mr. Ryan Scow, as always, in the house. Although when you weren't here last time, everybody noticed it because you never
Yeah,
miss a show.
I had the cough or something.
That's right. That's right.
Something was going on.
That's right. That's when Chris Canzaneri's not here tonight because he's got the cough, so he's not here tonight. But we got Rob Lasanti in the house, our center square, Mr. Craig Kaminsky, also of the Monsters Den. He's back after about a month. The King is here, Chris Allo.
Turn of the King
himself is here. Ralph Tamor is here. And our special guest tonight, of course, from In the Prog Seat and for Fusion Friday, Mr. George Lemmy. What's happening, everybody?
What's up?
We're celebrating Metal Blade Records tonight. We should have done it 2 years ago because it was the 40th anniversary 2 years ago, but better late than never, I always say. So we're going to talk about this great label and some of our favorite releases that have come out on Metal Blade over the years, and there's a lot of them. And as we were talking before we went and started recording this here little episode, there's a lot of obscure bands that have appeared on Metal Blade. There's a lot of very well-known bands that appeared on Metal Blade. They licensed a lot of stuff. A lot of things came out on other labels originally and then got reissued and re-released on Metal Blade. So it's kind of like a complicated history, but of course started up in 1982 by a guy that we've had on this program before, Mr. Brian Slagle, right? Of course, from Los Angeles. And I think he originally started up the label just as a way to get some of his favorite local metal bands a little bit more attention on a record label. And then, of course, that started up this whole compilation series, Metal Massacre, and you had all these bands that would later become very, very famous in all sorts of genres appeared at one point or another on the Metal Massacre releases over the years. And then all of a sudden you started seeing a lot of these bands pop up again and again and again. A lot of very noteworthy names: Cannibal Corpse, Black Dahlia Murder, Behemoth, As I Lay Dying, Amon Amarth, Trouble, Slayer, Gwar, King Diamond, Merciful Fate, Job for a Cowboy, Armored Saint, Corrosion of Conformity, Cattle Decapitation. The list goes on and on and on and on. Even some kind of non-metal stuff like Spock's Beard. It's been on the label. A lot of cool things. Traditional metal, thrash, death metal, black metal, metalcore, progressive metal, power metal, you name it, they've had it. So I've asked everybody to pick their 3 favorite releases, starting from the very beginning all the way to today. 3 favorite things that have ever come out on Metal Blade Records, and then we'll go a second time around and we'll do some honorable mentions. So we're going to start with the Count himself. Ralph, why don't you kick us off here with your 3 top picks from Metal Blade Records?
This was really hard. I looked at Metal Archives at the list, and it was like over 4,000 releases. And I looked through everything, and I was getting annoyed because I kept seeing things that I had no idea was on Metal Blade. And then I checked my album, and sure enough, was released on something else. But then I guess it was licensed later. Like, I mean, you can even see all the Thin Lizzies were on the list. So, like, I wouldn't include anything like that. Only like the bands that were like on Metal Blade at the time. But my number 3. I'm going to go Destruction, Eternal Devastation. Unbelievable album. I always been my favorite Destruction album. And number 2, Morbid Tales, my autographed copy. And I didn't realize that this was on Metal Blade because I always thought of them as Noise Records because the later stuff was like all on Noise. But
that's where it gets complicated because there were all these licensing deals, right? Chris looks like he wants to.
I was just about to say to go, that's on Metal Blade? Holy shit.
Yeah,
I didn't know
my
that.
copy's on Metal Blade.
Okay.
But yeah, like the next one isn't though, but Emperor's Return EP is.
That's also on Metal Blade, but To Megatherion was not. I had to double check it too for the same reason.
Yeah, Noise Records. And I mean, when you look through the Metal Archives, they even had like Melissa and Don't Break the Oath, and they're you see Megaforce right on the back. But years later, when they got the Merciful Fate catalog, they released all the later ones. So I didn't include any of the old ones. But yeah, my number 1, I have to go Slayer Hell Awaits. Pretty predictable one for me, but yeah, I had to put. I was going to go with 3 obscure ones and figured that everybody would talk about these, but I didn't know who was going to show up tonight. But yeah, Hell Awaits, my favorite Slayer. And I try not to do more than one album per band, or else Show No Mercy would probably squeezed in somehow. That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it's kind of weird what was going on back then because you had labels like Combat and Noise and Enigma and Metal Blade and Peaceville a little bit later on, and all these small underground metal labels that were releasing stuff and then licensing for various countries to labels like Metal Blade. So there was kind of like this weird thing going on back then. So yeah, when you're doing the homework and looking all this stuff up, it's like, you can look at any of these albums. Roadrunner 2 was involved too, and Road Racer for a while, and you see like any of these albums could have like 3 different labels listed, but it depends on what territory they were from because
I think it was in Canada. Like you see, when I was doing the research, Banzai Records did a lot of these too. Like a lot of these albums, I think those were all Canadian, but same thing. They licensed them up for a different country.
right.
So whether you consider they put it out, I don't know. It's kind of like whatever you pick.
Yeah, at some point they were released by Metal Blade. That's the thing, but a lot of
Yes.
these originally might not have been. Like I think Ryan, I think like the Voivod catalog, right? Or wasn't 1 or 2 of their early ones also on Metal Blade?
This
First
one was,
Yeah.
and then they got out of the contract and they went to Noise for Roar onward.
Same thing with Frost.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly. All right, Mr. Allo. You're up.
Okay. I was trying to find something new, like a newer record that I really liked. But we're all so old, or maybe I should I don't want to drag anybody else under the bus. Like I'm so old that I grab one of the newer records, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is from 1999. Like that's fucking like 25 years old. But 25 years ago it was a new record, and it's The Crown, Death Race King, super cool Swedish death thrash band. I got all their records, but man, this record just really, I just fell in love with it. I to this day I still think it's their greatest record, and I was lucky enough to see them on that tour with Ralph's buddies Christian. It was like the coolest tour. It was Nile, The Crown, who was it? Nile, The Crown, Christian, and Cannibal Corpse. But that was like the summer package tour. But Nile and Cannibal Corpse went to Canada without The Crown and Christian. So I was lucky enough to see The Crown and Christian at this tiny club in Jersey with like 40 people, and I got to film both bands. And I don't know where it is, but I have it somewhere. But yeah, man, this record just rips.
The Crown played the Chance too.
Did they?
Yeah, I've seen them at the Chance. I think on that album too.
No shit. Yeah, I went.
They haven't been back they have not been back to the States in a long time.
Long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this was at. I used to know the guys at Obsessions.
In Randolph, New Jersey.
There was every metal show there, other than King Diamond, they would get a good 35, 40 people. It was like, I don't know how they fucking did it, but who knows. Number 2, this was a band that was this was a blind buy for me. For our younger, our younger readers, our younger viewers, who before there was like Spotify and YouTube and and whatever the fuck else, where you could just go, my buddy tells me XYZ is a good band, I should look them up. It was just, I read in some magazine that there was this newer band from Sweden that was playing, and it was such an original thing because they were, instead of being 1987, 88, everybody was either a thrash band or a fucking glam band, but this band was doing like Sabbathy kind of stuff. And I'd never heard of them before, but I went and bought the record and absolutely loved it. I was shocked. I found my original record on Metal Blade from 1988, and it's Nightfall from Swedish band Candlemass. And then years later, I did have to buy again the double disc with like demos and stuff. But yeah, it was as a huge Sabbath fan. Back then, it was funny that everybody was like, "Oh, this is so original," but at the same time, nobody gave a shit about Black Sabbath in 1988. They couldn't get arrested, and my number one favorite is the other side of Ralph's. It's always the debate for old school Slayer fans. Show No Mercy versus Hell Awaits. A lot of people like the more progressive. more Merciful Fate influenced Hell Awaits, but I prefer the more Judas Priest influenced Show No Mercy. This is not the copy that I originally bought in the 80s. This is I met Kerry King in the Ozfest, and he signed this as one of those Japanese vinyl reissues. But I still absolutely love Show No Mercy, and I would love it if they would, now that they're back together. They're not listening to me, but I would love it if they went out and either played all of Show No Mercy or all of Hell Awaits. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to go see them again.
Don't worry, they won't.
Not gonna.
No, I meant the whole records.
I know. Yeah, I love it too, but they won't.
Yeah, they're not doing that. But yeah, so that's my 3.
And
Hey,
Chris,
my copy of Candlemass, I pulled it out and it says Peaceville on the back, has no mention of Metal Blade, and I don't.
Yeah,
have
mine's
that.
Peaceville too.
That's interesting, Ralph, because I did look it up, I'm assuming that's the original, because Nightfall apparently came out in '87, and when I looked it up, I'm like,
In the States, it was U.S. or States, it was Metal Blade.
States, it was Metal Blade in '88, and then that was quickly followed by Ancient Dreams. And I remember I caught that tour, and it was one of the weirdest tours ever. Candlemass, Liege Lord, who I think were also on Metal Blade, and Cycle Sluts from Hell. I don't know if were they a Metal Blade band. I don't know.
Like Columbia or something. Yeah. Or CBS records or something.
Wow.
For there.
Oh boy, they were.
I think I saw that tour at the Ritz.
Oh no shit! That one I saw
mistaken.
at Frank Cariola's Sundance in Bayshore, Long Island.
Yep, there you go. I could have sworn that Nightfall, I bought the import when it first came out. I could have sworn they were on Music for Nations. I'd have to double check. But it's
probably
weird
was
how
on
that
all three.
happens. It's like you could get, everybody could have a different version of that.
Well, and
Yeah,
I
my
remember-
version says Peaceville too, and it's of course that album's been reissued 1,000 times. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't even know what the
was
reissue
just gonna say
history
that.
looks
Could
like.
be, could be your version came from England, Ralph's came from Germany. I mean, who
yeah,
knows?
absolutely.
I have an original cassette in my garage. I'm gonna run out and get it while the next person goes.
Okay.
I love that Ralph knows where everything is. I don't know how that's possible. I know where nothing is.
I have the original cassette literally in a box behind me, and I don't feel like it's probably in the bottom of the box, so it's gonna stay right there.
I couldn't
So
even
Chris,
find my
basically what you're
keys.
saying is if you ran out to your garage to find a cassette we'd never see on the show again.
They never, yeah.
You know what? No joke. You know what the problem was? To get to the garage, I had to ask my wife, "Where's my keys?" I couldn't find my goddamn keys. So
We have to call the cops to
Send a
find it.
search party.
I couldn't believe I found this. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like first box. I was like, "Wow."
That
That's
works.
lucky. Otherwise, you'd be like the mom in Poltergeist. We had to tie the rope around you when you go in the closet, to fish it back out.
And I was really looking. I'm sure you guys remember. It's not duplicated on the back here, but I was really looking for my old copy of Show No Mercy, because if I remember right, wasn't the vinyl? Didn't it say on one it said side 6, and then the other one was side 6/6?
Yeah, mine says that.
Right.
Yeah.
I always thought that was like goofy but cool at the same time. 'Cause
Yeah.
nobody else did.
Is it just me? I'm looking at Ralph's vinyl shelves behind him. They look like they're about to like cave in.
Oh yeah.
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 They're
It's
about to-
amazing
they're
how
about to
heavy
get
that
the-
stuff is.
I hope we don't find you buried there one day.
Yeah, my cassette says Metal Blade, right?
Okay.
Interesting.
Ah, wow.
Go figure. All right. Interesting. All right, Craig, over to you.
Okay, thanks. I had picked 3 that were some favorites of mine. Maybe not necessarily my all-time favorites, but definitely ones worth mentioning. So my first one was one that I didn't buy this when it first came out, but I bought it because my favorite band at the time in 1987 had grabbed one of this band's members. So I figured, well, what the heck, I should check out this album and see if I like it. So I picked Flotsam and Jetsam's Doomsday for the Deceiver, since this is the only one that bass player Jason Newsted is featured on. Metallica was my favorite band in 1987, so I had ran out and gotten this on cassette when I had read about them taking him. Good thrash album, has some fun songs. Hammerhead, Iron Tears, She Took an Axe. It still holds up pretty well today. So that's my That was my first
I
pick.
tell you, they played that angle to as good as they could, man. It's like they had the sticker on
He was
front.
in that band featuring Jason Newsted.
Steve Keeler did a good job of selling me on that back in '87, whatever. When I walked into Rock Fantasy, go, oh, you got to have this. I'm like, oh, okay.
But it was a really good record.
It's really
Yeah,
good.
it is definitely it's their best album, I think.
Yeah, and they've got a
Before
ton.
he joined
They've-
Metallica.
Yeah, and they've got a ton of albums still to this day.
Yep.
So my second pick, of course, I had to go with some Doom, and what naturally then to pick Trouble Psalm 9, and we got Assassin, the Tempter, a really cool cover of Cream's Tales of Brave Ulysses, and just many more really good crunchy album that came out, kind of set the standard for a lot of bands to come later on, and rest in peace to Eric Wagner, who really had a really nice, unique voice for them. And their first five are definitely ones for that anyone should grab, whether you whether you like Doom or not. They're quality, heavy albums that are very accessible. My third one was one that I had thought, it's too bad Karen's not, I was feeling under the weather, because this is one that I think I would have listened to back in the day with Angry Karen. And so I went with Dirty Rotten Imbeciles Thrash Zone. And you got songs like Abduction and Beneath the Wheel and Thrash Hard and You Say I'm Scum. So these are really fun album. I'm sure Ralph's probably got a copy of it right there. That's
Well, I
handy.
got dealing with it.
Okay. I figured somebody might pick one by these guys, but really good album though, and this one's more, as the title says, thrashy. Still has some punk feeling into it, but it's got some really good heavy throw your elbows and throw your fists grooves to them. So check it out if you have not heard this. Thrash Zone from DRI.
I saw DRI and Death when they toured together in the late '80s. God, I don't even remember where the hell it was. It was in New York City somewhere. It might have been in Lemoore, and it was one of the craziest shows I've ever seen. It was just absolutely nuts. I think that was the Leprosy tour for Death, and I don't remember what album it was for DRI, but that was pretty nuts.
Probably Dealing with It
I've
or
seen
crossover.
DRI at Lemoore. I seen DRI at Lemoore with Creator Terrible Certainty tour, and it was crossover for DRI.
Ralph, I was just going to say, I saw that same tour at the Sundance in Long Island, and Creator was crushing. And I cannot say I did this very often, but I walked out midway through DRI. They were, I don't know if they were drunk or high. They were so sloppy. And I mean, I was a kid, and I was like, these guys suck. And I walked out half.
They kind of always were a sloppy band back then.
And I got to see them at that Jack Koshik show, Metal Meltdown 4 in Asbury Park in 2002. They were playing in one of the smaller rooms, and there wasn't a ton of people there. So you could walk like pretty much right up to them and see Kurt Breckton singing his heart out there. So it was pretty cool to see them.
They played the Chance in the Loft a bunch of times. I've hung out with them a bunch of times. I got books right off from Kurt had books that he written, and I got them signed. And he doesn't. They're hard to find now. They're like out of print for a long time, but always really accessible people.
Anybody ever get to see Trouble back in the day? I saw them once open up for King Diamond. Anybody get to see them?
Saw them 2 nights in a row in 1990, opening for Danzig.
Okay. George, did they play around Chicago a lot? I mean, I know it's their home.
A lot. But you'd see them once in a while, but it, not like you'd think. They weren't ever like a real local band that I can recall.
Saw the reunion in 2004 in Pennsylvania. 2005, maybe? I don't know.
My buddy seen him in North Carolina 2 weeks after or before he died. Before Eric died, 2 weeks earlier, he was at a show in North Carolina. They were playing with Wino was playing with them. It was like a tour, and he died on the tour before the tour ended.
I saw in 2014. I saw in Montreal the Skull, but they played the first 2 Trouble albums. It was like a special set. So they did all of Psalm 9 and they did all of Skull. My
Wow,
memory's a little hazy because there was a lot of whiskey involved, but I remember it was really good.
that sounds awesome. Very cool. All right, Ryan, you're up.
All right, so you guys have already mentioned a few of mine, but we'll start from the top. So number 3, yeah, my copy does say Peaceville, but I looked it up and sure enough, the first US issue of it was the second Candlemass album, which is I do hear Sabbath in this, obviously slow doomy, but these guys are more, I don't know how to describe it. It's like more like this classical gothic kind of, and obviously the vocals are tremendously different, but yeah, I can listen to this album on repeat forever. So, beginning to end, some of the greatest songs ever. I've been fortunate to see them a couple times in recent years, play this whole album in its entirety, and it's just fucking awesome. So that's my number 3. Well, number 2 was mentioned briefly, but this was their only album on Metal Blade, but it's one of my favorites. Going up to Canada, and it's the first Voivod album, War and Pain. Now, obviously, these guys, as they went on, became a lot more proficient, cleaner, more professional, but I don't give a fuck. I still love this one. The guitar sounds like an absolute chainsaw, just total madness. Yeah. I never really looked into the story because after this album came out, they jumped ship and joined Noise. So I don't know if there was any animosity there, but you know what? I love this album. Classic. And it was already mentioned, but you put a gun to my head. This might be my favorite album of all time. Changes, but on a lot of days, this is my favorite album of all time, and that can only be Hellwaits. Yeah. Show No Mercy, obviously, awesome too. Haunting the Chapel, awesome, but yeah, this is probably my favorite album ever. So it was an easy number 1. Yeah, just everything about this album is perfect. Listen to it all the time. Love it. And I have, you know what? I forgot. I have the axe. I have the Metal Blade axe.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
where I got it from. It's like a dollar store. It probably was a promotional item. Well, it was a promotional item, but I don't know from what. I really have no idea where I got it, but it's like a dollar store Party City gag. But there we go. Metal Blade axe. I got Nick's picks too. So let me suss those up real quick. So Nicholas picked Slayer Hellwaits, smart man. Primordial, Redemption at the Puritan's Hand, and Candlemass Nightfall.
That's right. I forgot that Primordial is on Metal Blade.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love the love for Candlemass tonight. Very cool. There you go.
There we go.
Great Irish band. All right, Rob, over to you.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to be a little bit different than everybody tonight for a change. So we're talking about Pete, you were talking about the history of Metal Blade, and I was thinking about when you said, from the beginning till now. So I'm going with my first pick tonight. My third pick is, hold on, let me just get this, I can get it to work. A band you would never think I would listen to. 200 Stab Wounds. This came out in 2023. They're guys from Cleveland and quartet. And it's kind of like Cannibal Corpse, but a little bit more easier. I can't explain it. The riffs are more groovy. You know what I mean? More grooving. And I mean, it's death metal. It's definitely death metal. And all the songs are like 2 or 3 minutes. They're not really long songs. I don't know why or how I got it. I think I was on YouTube and I saw it. I said, this has got to be crazy. So I said, let me listen to it. And I really got into it. I was like, this is great. So this is from Metal Blade 2023 and 200 Stab Wounds. If anybody wants some new death metal, and they play a lot. I mean, I'm not going to go to Brooklyn, but they do play in Brooklyn a lot from what I saw. My second one, 2007.
That's a good one.
Brainstorm,
Yeah.
Germany. Andy B. Frank, one of my favorite singers from the 2000s when I first got introduced to them. Somehow, I think maybe on MySpace or whatever, way before Facebook. And this album kills. Frozen's a great song, and it's the whole album's great. There's a couple albums. I mean, I have most of their albums, but I didn't remember until I started doing the research that they were on Metal Blade. And they have a few albums on Metal Blade. So for me, that's my second choice. I was going to pick for my third one what a lot of the guys were going to pick tonight, but I figured, let me go back to 1991. And I think George knows this one.
There you go.
Parallels from Fate's Warning. another great album. I mean, Leave the Past Behind, Eye to Eye, 11th Hour, great album. You know, actually, I think Mathos and Ray have a new album out, right? But it's kind of mellow. I listened to some of it. It's pretty mellow. Yeah, it's not metal. It's definitely not metal, but it's on Metal Blades.
I know.
Wow. Because I checked it out today. I was like, wait a minute. This is on Metal Blade Records? It sounds like something like almost like
It's not very metal at all.
it's
No.
not metal at all. But anyway, but this album here is a great album.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorites, you know, from Fates Warning. And yeah, so those are my 3 picks tonight.
Awesome. I love your brainstorm pick. That's such a great, man. Folks who like power metal, but like want to listen to a band that doesn't do like the kind of cheesy brand of power metal, brainstorm is terrific.
Yeah.
See that?
He likes power metal.
There you go.
I think I saw them at Prague Power, but I'm
Okay,
not sure.
you chill out.
They have played at Prague Power. Yeah. And
Yeah.
he's such a great singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good choice. They have a lot of good albums, a lot of really good albums.
Let this more
Heavy band, but they're very melodic.
Yep.
Cool. All right, George.
All right, my number 3 is from Texas. I would say a speed metal band generally.
All-Star.
Hstar, yeah.
Hstar No Spatu. I had heard the previous album first. My guitar player's little brother turned me on to it. I think you like this. That's good, but this is the proverbial kicked it up a notch album. All the riffs are burning, great solos. They're like speed metal riffs, but the guitar players play like neoclassical leads. The singer's this little short dude that belts like an air raid siren. Man, this guy's got a huge voice, James Rivera. Sadly, this lineup broke up after this album, so it was just kind of like a 2-album pocket where they really, really gelled. They're still good, but not like this. Not to me, anyway.
James is a kick-ass singer, man.
Yeah,
I saw them last year in Houston, and he can hit those notes. He still sounds great.
Speaking of singers that are still good, my number 2, Arch Mattheos, Winter Ethereal.
Yeah.
Slagle loves the Fates Warning guys, so I'm sure he was like coming in his pants to put out albums like this from these guys. This is really incredible stuff. Mattheos writing all the songs. Arch is inimitable vocal style. And then this album they had like a parade of guest rhythm section players. But it's all about Arch and Mattheos, especially for me, John Arch, who I would listen to him sing the phone book. So I love this album. And the one before it's really good too.
Yep.
And speaking of him, my number 1 is Fates Warning, Spectre Within. Just this has got, it brings me back to the day of this is 1985. Just seeing a guy in line at the Metallica, the Fight Fire, the Ride the Lightning show. He had a jam box going and this was on there. And I was just like, man, dude, what is this? I got to get this, I had to run out and get it. And it was like he had the demos. I don't know who he knew, but it was just, he's like, it's not out, but you're going to love it. And I was like, yeah, I ended up loving it. I know most people prefer Awaken the Guardian. For me, they're like this close, but there's something about this one that really just always got to me. So Spectre Within for me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Awaken the Guardian, though, the problem with that album is it just sounds the production is terrible on it. It really is. I can never get into the production on that album.
I think
Personal thing.
Spectre sounds a little cleaner.
All right. I probably should have the Candlemass album in my top 3, but I'm going to choose a couple different things here. Well, one I have to choose, and the other one, number 3, I'm going to go with one of the great comeback albums of all time, Merciful Fate in the Shadows. This album gets better like all the time. It's like I listen to this and I'm like, man, there are some days I'm like, this is almost as good as those first 2 albums. It's so good. I mean, the guitar playing is off the charts. The songs are progressive. They're dark, and the production's just massive on it. I love this. I think this is really good. It's amazing how it took them so long to come back and do another one, right? But it's really great. I'm going to agree with Chris. I'm going to go with Show No Mercy for Slayer. You can't go wrong with this or Hell Awaits, but I tend to like this album just a little bit better. I love the I love the fact that they never really ever did an album like this before. It's like fast and riffy and just more, I guess, traditional metal sounding. And it's just completely different than the album that came after it, completely different than the one that came after that. I mean, really early in their career, Slayer were kind of changing things up quite a bit on every album. But yeah, this is just absolutely classic. Antichrist, Die by the Sword, love it. Just so many classic tunes on there. And my number one is Awake in the Garden by Fate's Warning. I love it. This is the first album I ever heard by them. And I still can listen to this album to this day. And I just love how moody and doomy and progressive it is. And man, John Arch. Ah, what a singer. What a singer. I mean, the title track is so good. Fata Morgana is just great. Prelude to Ruin the Sorceress. I mean, it's such a classic album. And I love I've talked about it enough on the channel, but I love Ioannis's great artwork on the album too. And there they are. Great band from Connecticut. Those are my three. Back to Ralph. Honorables.
So I wanted to throw a Hallows Eve one in there, but between these two, it's so hard to choose. I mean, I got this one first, so I'm going to have to say this one, but this has a song on it that's probably in my top 10 songs of all time, Lethal Tendencies, one of the greatest heavy riffs, so catchy, memorable. Love that album. These two are like some crossover stuff. COC, Animosity,
Oh, yeah.
Cryptic Slaughter, Money Talks. And these were like, the Death Records, but they were part of like how Combat was like part of the other one. So it's still part of Metal Blade. And a couple shock rockers, The Mentors, You Asked For It, War, Scum Dogs of the Universe. And then it's funny how like I consider this like the newer band, but again, this is probably, I mean, some of these albums are from Goat Whore, over 20 years old now, but yeah, I have to include Goat Whore, Blood for the Master, Midnight Satanic Loyalty, another great newer band that Metal Blade is kept up with, still getting great bands. This band, Crisis, Death's Head Extermination. I'm wearing a shirt by the band Crisis. Such an underrated band, female fronted. I can't even like say what they sound like. They don't really sound like anybody. They were so original, and she was one of the greatest front women. She went nuts on stage and has such a crazy, unique voice. No one liked them back in the day. Hope they come back someday. Immolation, Dawn of Possession, one of the great early death metal albums from back then. I had to throw in a Cannibal Corpse, so I just threw in Tomb of the Mutilated, and that's it.
So many, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
A
could go on
lot of
forever.
choices.
Chris, you got any left?
Pete, the Into the Shadows is great. The one I like slightly better is 9 from Mercy.
9 is awesome. 9 is awesome.
Great album.
Of the
Oh.
Fate comeback records, that and Into the Shadows are my two favorites, but I think 9 edges it out. I was going to mention Evisceration Plague. I think is my favorite Cannibal record. I mean, I love the earlier stuff, but man, I just love that record. It's just crushing. That my all-time favorite Cannibal song is Evisceration Plague. And last one I was going to mention the Armored Saint comeback record, Symbol of Salvation. Which, man, I think if it had come out like 2 years earlier, they would have been fucking huge. It's just, obviously situations and timing, and but I still love that record. And we saw them not that long ago play that whole record at the Chance.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, that doesn't feel like that long ago, but maybe it was. Was that like 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
I think it was like 5 years ago, man.
Was it that long ago?
I have a feeling, yeah.
Time flies, man.
I don't know. We saw it though. We were there.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Armored Saint, Dave passed away, and just they should have been huge. Oh well. Craig.
Well, just like Chris said, hey, it's Merciful Fate's 9. So that was one of mine that I'd picked. Ryan mentioned this earlier, but I had to throw it in. Troubles the Skull, Pray for the Dead and The Wish, and just another stomping doom classic from 1985. My last one just is from a band, but just I had a few from them all on Metal Blade, and that's Sacred Reich with Ignorance. And if you had bought your surfboard, you could surf Nicaragua, and The American Way, which this one's actually really good, from 1990. It's a good good thrash and good headbanging album from them, and also pretty smart lyric that they throw in there. Not your average the kind of metal lyrics. They throw a lot of political slants into it. So, but a good band nonetheless. Sacred Reich.
Cool. Yeah, I had a couple of their albums back in the day. Good band. Ryan.
I got a great one from 1984 that no one's mentioned, but now it's my turn, so I'll bring it out. And I love the cover art, so I'm going to take it out of the sleeve because it's just so classy. Omen, Battle Cry.
Yes.
Eddie Powell was in Savage Grace, broke up that band or left that band, I don't remember. Teamed up with a guy by the name of J.D. Kimball, a great vocalist, unfortunately passed away in 03. A deeper register than a lot of these, like, you talk about like Queens, Reich, and Halford, who's tend to sing and like, hit the falsettos. This guy had more of like a deeper, more powerful voice. But yeah, these guys were up there with like Manila Road and Sierra Thungle and Man of War, like singing about swords and sorcery. They had a couple albums after this. They kind of like just beat the same thing to death. Like the other albums, the subsequent albums were good, certainly very good. And Kimball is an awesome vocalist, but this one is, yeah, I can listen to this front to back anytime. Love it.
I would say if you have that album and The Curse, that's really all you need from Omen.
And Danger or Warning of Danger, the second one. Yeah, those first three.
Yeah, Warning of Danger. Amazing.
They're basically Warning of Danger and The Curse are kind of like this, just not as good, but like 95% is good. But I think, yeah, Battle Cry this one is fucking awesome. So yeah, this first Omen album for sure. Chris mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again because when you said Metal Blade, it's actually one of the first albums that came to mind. The Crown. Yeah, these guys had a couple albums that were a little more traditional Swedish death metal, still very good. This was their fourth album. They were originally called Crown of Thorns, and I believe they had to change the name because there was a Christian rock band of the same name. So they I guess there was a court dealing, they lost, so they just went with the Crown.
A New York hardcore band. There's a New York hardcore band
called Crown of Thorns. Yep. I can't remember if it was a hardcore band. I thought it was like a Christian band that kind of.
It probably was, but I think the Crown of Thorns in New York hardcore spelled it with a Z. But
that sounds familiar. But yeah, so when this came out, I mean, at the time, I know stuff like Arch Enemy, In Flames, and Soilwork and Dark Tranquillity was big, and I was never as big into those bands. But these guys sounded like Slayer meets Motorhead smashed into like that kind of Swedish sound, like way faster, more aggressive. There was the 10th song on here was called Total Satan. One of my favorite songs of all time. Like definitely for working out, for lifting weights, for running. It is just an absolute fucking fist to the face. I put it on and it automatically makes me want to lift like 50 more pounds. Yeah. Blitzkrieg Witchcraft. This is an awesome album. Have you ever heard this? The stuff after this was also good. They had a couple good albums. They had one with the singer from At the Gates was with them for a little while. But yeah, this one is definitely their peak. What else? I got just a couple quick ones here. Primordial. Another very long running band that's been on Metal Blade forever. Ton of great albums. Never really let us down. But this one, Redemption at the Puritan's Hand, is probably my favorite. So that's the one I went with. Cool art. It opens with No Grave Deep Enough, probably my favorite Primordial song. So I know Nick's a huge Primordial fan. So I have to throw these guys in too. And just two more real quick, or actually three more. Sorry. Another great Metal Blade band that I know Slago was real into, helped kind of dig out of obscurity, signed them to the label back in the day. And then when they reunited, was right there to scoop them back up and put out their reunion album. I love the old stuff and I love the new stuff. So I'm going to go with the reunion album, Sierra Thungle. They just put out an album last year that's fucking awesome. But this was their first reunion album, Forever Black. So this is a classic. I've been fortunate to see them now like 5 or 6 times since they reunited. And every time they just blow me away. Like definitely, I always liked them, but they've become one of my favorite bands ever based on this newer stuff and based on the live shows. They're just so good. And the last two I'm going to go with are the same guitar player, different bands. Another band at Metal Blade, an old band that they've done new stuff from and have killed it. And that is, I know we talked about them on the show, but Satan. Yeah, they've had a whole bunch of reunion albums. They've all been killer. This is probably my favorite. This is the 4th reunion album since they came back. I think 2013 was the first one, and they've been shrugging along ever since. This is Earth Infernal, which came out in 2022, I believe. Yeah, 2022. Just a great album, great band, great riffs, great vocals. One of the best dual guitar teams in metal. Very, very underrated. And I just love Russ so much. So I'm also going to mention Russ's other band, Tanith, who put out this album in 2023. This is like more of like Wishbone Ash, Uriah Heep, Old Rainbow kind of stuff. But yeah, just great guitars, great storytelling, great vocals. If you like that kind of like that Uriah Heep, Wishbone Ash stuff, these guys are fucking awesome. So that's all I got. Oh, let me read Nick's too. He would be very upset if I didn't. So I joked with Nick and I said, he gave me a whole list and I said, I sent him back a picture of a Goo Goo Dolls album from 95. And I said, I'm just going to say that you love the Goo Goo Dolls, Nick, and I'm going to disregard everything else you say. And he told me to go fuck myself. But
I saw that on there too. Google that.
yeah, that was always the thing. People were like, Goo Goo Dolls had an album on Metal Blade. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to listen to it. I don't care if it sounds like Hell Awaits Part 2. So he said the whole Primordial discography. All right. Satan, Court in the Act. Now, I didn't check. I know all the reunion albums are on Metal Blade, but I don't know if Court in the Act in '83 was on Metal Blade.
I
Yeah,
don't think so.
It was at one point reissued on
Reissued, okay.
Road Racer, but it also was reissued on Metal Blade. It was also on what was that Metal Mind out of Poland. So yeah, that's another
The Metal
one
Mind, yeah.
that was on.
My version of it, or my CD and my vinyl, are definitely not Metal Blade, but I believe that there was some issue along, like we said, along the way. And he also said Battle Cry by Omen, Voivod War and Pain, Smart Man. And he also went with you guys and picked Show No Mercy as his Slayer album. Also said In the Shadows, like you said, great Merciful Fate album. And Hammers of Misfortune, a very, very cool prog metal rock band, who I love and have seen, but I couldn't tell you what album they put out on Metal Blade. I have all their albums on CD and vinyl, but that name didn't even come into my head until I read this text. So I got some homework to do. But yeah, another great band. And Google Dolls.
I think it's very cool that Brian has kind of taken Satan and Sirathungal, kind of keeping them close on the label, and really both of those bands just having such a great late career renaissance. I mean, those new Satan albums are great. That recent Sirathungal album and the one before that, so good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And like
aren't they? They're playing in the city soon, aren't they?
Sirathungal, which one? Sirathungal, they're playing in November. They're playing 2 last shows, and I'm seeing them in Texas in a couple weeks at Hell's Heroes Fest. So
there was a really good documentary on Axis TV about the making of Metal Massacre 1 that Brian Slagle hosted, and among the band interviews that they interviewed with it were a couple of the guys from Sirathungal talking about the song that they contributed, songs that they contributed to it. So it's pretty cool if you get to see it on a rerun, perhaps.
Cool.
I definitely will check that out.
Yeah. Rob, you got any left?
All right. Yeah, I got a few. So we were talking about Andy B. Frank before. Well, Andy B. Frank is also in this band called Symforce. And this album, and there's a few albums, but this is it's a prog, touches of prog, but it's heavy metal, but it's got a little prog to it. Really great album. That also came out in 2007. Then this one I was surprised about when I was doing my research. Symphony X. They released V on Metal Blade. It's on their list.
One and only album, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, one and only album. Then the Doom Band Below, another great album that came out in 2017. You guys have been talking about this band. Of course, it was on my top 5 last year. Great album, as we just talked about. Also, Fate 9 was on my list. And of course, Hell Awaits. Those are all my honorable mentions.
Awesome.
Also, I threw this one in there too. Just for the hell of it.
Yeah. It's great, right? George, you got any honorables?
Yeah, a few. My Fate is Time, although In the Shadows by Whisker. Something about this one always resonated with me.
That's great.
I'll go with Craig. I love Doomsday Receiver. I heard this before he was in Metallica. And so when he joined Metallica, we were all over the moon about it. I mean, just totally love this album. And I like the recent ones now. They went through a long period where I didn't care about them, but the last 3, I want to say.
They're very good. Yep. They're very
killer.
Good. Yeah.
And the last one is very un-Metal Bladey, a one and done band called Native Construct. This is 2014. The closest comparator is probably between what's that band called? Between the Buried in Me, kind of crazy, heavy. There's some blast beats. There's a little bit of growly vocals. It's a blender album. You probably love it or hate it, basically. But I really love it. So that's it.
All right. Speaking of Between the Buried and Me, Coma Ecliptic concept album. They seem to always be doing concept albums lately. If you haven't listened to Between the Buried and Me, it's kind of dream theater, complex progressive metal meets metalcore meets death metal meets kind of like circus music. Whatever. It's a little bit of everything, and with the kitchen sink, amazing musicianship. I
I'm
mean,
afraid of clowns, so
yeah, it's a really intense band. You know, that may not be for everybody, but when they're great, they're really great. I love them. So they have a couple albums on Metal Blade. That's one of them. Got to go with Symbol Assemblation by Armored Saint. Classic stuff there. Cirith Ungol, One Foot in Hell. Great album. One of their greats from the 80s, and could pick any one of the first couple Trouble albums. Psalm 9 always kind of gets my pick, but they're all great. And there's lots more. Liege Lord has a couple really good albums, and I love those early Hallows Eve. And yeah, there's so many of them. I mean, Metal Blade, long history. Would you say 4,000 albums, Ralph? Something like that? It's crazy.
I just remembered one because I was looking at it. A little voice just spoke to me. I'm like, I'm on Metal Blade, but a very long running, famous death metal institution. And I pulled out an album, and sure enough, it was on Metal Blade, but from Poland, Vader.
Yes.
Vader are Metal Blade. So I pulled out their 2002 album, Revelations. But yeah, I looked and they have several Metal Blade. Awesome, up there with Cannibal Corpse or Immolation or any other, long running death metal institution. But yeah, fucking Vader, another great band.
Yep. Yeah, I think for everybody watching, Ralph, I think you're on.
Ralph, you're muted.
You're muted, Ralph.
Oh yeah, my dog was making noise again. Yeah, that Between the Buried and Me, they played the Loft when their first album came out, and I seen them because they were opening up for somebody else, but I can't remember who it was. But seeing them in that little tiny place there was pretty crazy.
Yeah, see them.
I was at that show. I don't remember who they played with, but yeah, I was there.
Yeah. I think it was one of those nights where there might have been something downstairs and upstairs at the same time or something. I can't recall.
That sounds about right.
I was gonna say, is that the same band that did a whole record based on Tom Cruise movies? No.
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of.
Get out in post.
We need an internet
Didn't
sleuth to
somebody
pick that
do
one
that?
up.
Some band like 20 years ago did a whole record based on. Put it in the comments, somebody, because I got the olds. But somebody did a record based on Tom Cruise movies. Like every song was based on like The Color of Money or Top Gun or
Believe it.
Tom Cruise.
Days of Thunder.
I don't know who it was. I thought it was them.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard stupider shit, so that wouldn't surprise me.
Ralph, are those Metal Massacres albums worth any money?
Oh hell yeah! I mean,
thought
this is the first appearance of bands like Hellhammer and Metal Church's first appearance is on here. Omen, Voivod. I don't got the first one with Metallica. That's the one worth a ton. But I got this one with Trauma that has Cliff Burton on it, and Slayer's first one is on this one.
Aggressive Perfector, right?
Yeah, Aggressive Perfector's on this one with a lot of bands that disappeared after a while. Like there ain't too many other bigger bands on this one, but yeah, I'm sure these are worth. I never checked to see what they're worth, but yeah, they're probably worth something.
Yeah, I would hold on to those.
Yeah, Chris, to answer your question, the name of the band is Bury Your Dead, and
See, I knew there was a
the album is called Cover Your Tracks. Features titles such as Top Gun, Vanilla Sky, Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, The Color of Money, Legend, All the Right Moves, Losing It, and so on.
Awesome, thank you, Craig.
He did like 80 Mission Impossible movies, and they get no credit.
Well, that's tracks 3 and 7. They have Mission Impossible 1 and 2.
I take that back.
See, my friend, you don't have the old as bad as you think you do.
You remembered it. Somebody was getting buried. Just
2004.
20 years ago. No, you were right. 20 years ago.
Go on, Chris.
Yeah. So I urge everybody watching this episode to go. There's a couple places on the internet you can go, but look at the discography of Metal Blades records and prepare to be amazed at how many cool and interesting albums and bands have come out on this label over the years. So it's I think a testament to the love of the music. That look at that, you got some books. Mr. Brian Slagle, the man behind the scenes who makes it all happen, and he's still doing it to this day. Do they still have the store out in Vegas or whatever? Is that I know they had like a Metal Blade store out there selling all sorts of vintage stuff. Yeah, I think so, right?
Kind of like a museum too. He's got like Odorous' costumes, coming to some of the guys from War, and he's got like a bunch of cool stuff. I'm pretty sure that's like their like base store. They're still going.
That'd be a cool place to go, I think.
Mm.
So, anyway, for everybody watching, list your 3 favorite Metal Blade releases down in the comments below. And we'll see you back here in 2 weeks on the Hudson Valley Squares. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together.
Oh,
the damn
All the
time.
damn time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And if you don't, that axe that Ryan is holding is going to come down on you. We'll see you back here in a couple of weeks for Ryan Scow and the Axe, Rob Lasante, Craig Kaminsky, Chris Allo, Count Ralphus, and George Lemmy, IMP Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon. Have a good rest of the week. Bye-bye.